Hello, everyone. I'm Mia Voss with the Mia Connect, host of the Social Media Power Chat and 15 Minutes with Christine and Mia right here on YouTube. I'm so excited to talk with Debra Faris today. She's an intuitive LinkedIn coach and an amazing people connector, and she's on a wonderful mission with her new book called LinkedIn for College Students. And what she's doing is bringing to Google Hangouts people that she's connected with on LinkedIn that are very successful and will tell us their stories. So with that, I want to introduce Lee Pound. I have to read his description. It's so fabulous. Author, speaker, blogger, writing coach, book editor, and publisher. Lee, it's so great to talk with both you and Debra today.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. All right, Debra, why is Lee one of your favorite connections on LinkedIn for this book, LinkedIn for College Students?
Well, in Southern California, Lee actually is known as the coach's coach. He's actually not only written a lot of books, but he helps speakers write their books. And so I am really honored. He's just got this kind demeanor, and when you know him, you know that he comes from a place of empowerment to help other people.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. Just even in the green room, getting ready for the show and then reading his information, I can really pick up on that. So, Lee, we're getting ready for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, this is good. What gives you the entrepreneur talent, and how do you think college students can emulate and use that for their success?
Well, I think one of the key things that I've done through my whole career is essentially, although I've worked for companies, they've been small companies and entrepreneurial companies all the way through. And I think one of the key things for me was the connections that I had made, say, in my early years in college and so forth, that helped me go from company to company, and it really made a huge difference. So for me, college students coming out of college need to have connections more than ever these days. They need to already be hooked into the business and the companies and the types of operations that they want to ultimately work for. So when I look at LinkedIn, I see a huge opportunity for college students to connect with the people that they actually want to be interviewing with in the very, very near future. So it's a huge thing. I wish I had had it 40 years ago when I was doing this.
I was just thinking the same thing. Me too.
Yeah.
I think I love the adage, it's never too young to start, absolutely, with college students, and I would say even high school students, to be honest with you. Debra, what's your take on that as well?
Well, I think a lot of times when kids are in college, they don't really always know what their end in mind is or what their purpose is. They just know that they're trying to get a good education. They might know an industry. So I think LinkedIn gives them a whole lot of different avenues to look at, to consider, and by getting to meet people, whether it's online or offline, you get to see people's profile, what actually led them to those positions. So, one of my favorite is that, all the CFOs I've ever met, they actually were accountants at one time, and then they turned into controllers. So it's a position versus an industry. I just think that LinkedIn is a great wealth of information for them to start learning.
I agree with you on that. I think it's something, too, that I always coach with my clients. LinkedIn is the best place where you can shout at and say, this is exactly what I do, and this is what I'm really good at. And that's the great thing about LinkedIn. What a great resource. You can see from soup to nuts, beginning to end, where someone started and where they are now, right?
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, so with that, on LinkedIn, for both Lee and Debra, where do you suggest? I mean, I know for myself, I love following influencers and the different sections. Can you both give us kind of what you do when you're searching around on LinkedIn, how you find the people that you love to share and really connect with?
Well, one thing that I like to do is look at, particularly the second and third connections that I have, because a lot of those are in my industry. And because I've connected with a lot of people as first connections, I have all kinds of people who show up that I should be connected with. And I think for college students, again, if you can get connected to a few leaders in the industry that you could make friends with or communicate with before you even go out to put an application in, just because, say, you're interested in their company or something like that, you can find their connections, which are a lot of the people in the same industry. that you may be interested in going into. So I really think that you can leverage all of those second and third connections to find the people that you're interested in and connect with them. And do it on a social basis, not on a I'm looking for a job basis, or I'm a college student who may want to connect with you because I want something from you.
That's a great point, Lee. I was going to ask you that. What's the approach? Because a lot of these people who are influencers, I'm sure, are hit all the time with suggestions. Is that sounds like a great approach, more of a personal thing. I'm interested in you, right?
Exactly. I think the approach is I'm interested in what you're doing. I'm interested in learning more about how you do what you do, not more about your company necessarily. But
right. What can you give me? Right. Right.
And,
neat.
And here's the other key. What can I do for you?
Yep. Love it.
What do I have that might, help somebody in your company? And they will have looked at the company and researched it a bit to see what maybe is needed. And there's always a way we can help somebody, even if it's really small, by sending a customer or by just doing something that's public that they can see, that person can see. And they'll be more likely to connect because, hey, this is a person who isn't out to hammer me for what maybe I don't want.
Right,
so I think that is really critical. And that's one of the things we do in the speaking and book industry. It's not about what can you do for me? It's about what can I do for you? That's how we make the connections and how we get on stages and get emails and make JVs and things like that. It's the same thing for college students.
It really is, and I'll tell you, that is the best piece of advice, all you college students out there who are watching this. That really is. Again, when we talk about wish something you knew a long time ago, take it from the older folks. That is something that's really going to serve you well in the future. Debra, what's your take on that as well for connecting with folks?
So on the influencers, what's fascinating for me that it's all someone's perception. So for example, if you have an entrepreneur spirit, then an influencer that you might want to watch and listen to what he has to share is Richard Branson. I mean, not to say who doesn't love Richard Branson, but he truly is, not just a renegade, but somebody who's brilliant and innovative, and he's created so many wonderful things for people on this planet. And I think that that's what our next generation is going to be doing, is they are innovators and they are creative. I think a fun one I love that's an influencer on LinkedIn is, believe it or not, Conan O'Brien. So,
I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, and I put him in my book on commencements because he actually is brilliant and intelligent, and I just love to share with college students so they can see where successful people have not only been, but where they could travel down a road and expand and do something creative and different on that. Another one of my favorite influencers is, if you've ever seen Shark Tank, is Mark Cuban. And I love the things that he posts and that he shares. And another real favorite is Arena Huffington. She's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, why don't you expand on some of those folks?
Well, I'm taking notes. What are you talking about? Mark Cuban, that's right. I want to follow him too. I think this is great hearing all of that. No, Ariane Huffington, Guy Kawasaki. Yes. There's definitely a lot because of being in social media. I love that. So Mashable, I follow him. What's his name? Oh, Pete Casmore. Plus, I have a big crush on him anyway. So that always works. But so it's these people that you do love, and I love that with Conan O'Brien. He's smart, he's savvy, he's witty. Any talk show host, because they have to be up on the events as well. And I like that too. So once you start following that, and the influencer section we're talking about, everyone is right there when you sign up or you come to your homepage. It shows up right on the front. And it actually makes it very easy for you to share intelligent stories as well, and kind of pop that out. And so you like it, you can share it, you can comment on it, add a couple lines to it. A very easy way for you to not just be all me on your posts on LinkedIn.
Mia, I'm gonna jump back in and share something kind of funny. So one of the stories in my book is on Deepak Chopra, and my friends always laugh when I go, we're all one and all connected in the universe. I love Deepak. I have followed Deepak for probably 30 years. And what's so fun about Deepak is when I saw him on as an influencer, I was like, right on, Deepak. Now, so here's somebody who's science and metaphysical and intuitive, and yet he comes from a place of peace. And you know, one of the other chapters I have at the end, I share a commencement on John F. Kennedy, and he ends, and his whole commencement was about peace, right? And I think that that's where our next generations again are going to lead us into peace. They're going to be those influencers. I'm so excited.
I love that, and that this is such a new world age for all of us. You know, me starting business in the 80s and 90s, and definitely when it was just this me. And I think after dot-com bursts and bubbles and going through our economy downturn, it is much kinder and gentler. I would say atmosphere for us to connect in. So I preach it, sister. I love that. That's fantastic. All right. So my next question, we could go on and on with the influencers, right, everyone? Because it is just such a great way to connect. Lee, tell us, who is your mentor?
This is very interesting because I have a mentor that almost nobody's been able to have. I'm a writer and writing coach. And many years ago, probably in the early 90s, when I was starting to write novels, I connected with a former New York publisher whose name was Saul Stein. And Saul was the owner of Stein & Day Publishers, one of the biggest publishers of the 20th century. And I was in a small seminar with him with 10 or 15 other people for 4 years and wrote 2 novels during that time. He edited big chunks of them. I'm actually in one of his videos, Stein on Writing, about how to create an effective emotional chapter. So I learned not everything, but a lot of what I know about writing and publishing by sitting in the living room of the master for 4 years.
Wow.
And he is my mentor. He's the only mentor I really claim, because everybody else is, it's like he's a 10 out of 10 and everybody else is a 2 out of 10.
That's a tough act to follow, Lee.
It's a very tough act to follow. So,
and I'm just going to follow up with saying, lucky. I mean, really.
Yes, it was. It was that I got into a seminar, a thing that he was teaching at UC Irvine, and everybody said, what do we do now? And he came up with this idea. And you never know. It was just one of those one-time off things that I made that connection. But I still, the last time I saw him was a couple of years ago. And he's still around and still connecting and still remembers all the good stuff we did.
Oh, that's been, I was going to ask you if you were still connected with him as well. Debra, I'd love to know on yours, who's your mentor?
So I have a lot of mentors. Lee knows that. I actually, almost 30 years ago, when I started in real estate, a gentleman named Mike Ferry is one of the top real estate coaches in the United States. And I had the pleasure of being his coach on LinkedIn, and his mentor was Earl Nightingale. So when I started with Tony Robbins, I had one of those family tragedies in my life, and I journeyed down with Tony Robbins, and I learned that he had read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And from that, I started, well, who is his mentor? And I found out it was Jim Rohn. So I love Jim Rohn. I love Brian Tracy and his universal laws. But when I found out about Jim Rohn, what happened for me was I actually talked to one of my dear friends, 20 years I've known him. He actually worked with Tony Robbins, and Tony worked with Jim Rohn side by side when they were 18, 19 years old. And my friend is Don Hobbs. So it's been a fun journey for me because I always like to find out who's, just like you said, whose mentor is their mentor. So that's kind of a nice, fun journey for young people. I think college students will really get a lot of that, to go down that path of personal development will enhance their business more than they could ever hope.
And here's a question that we don't have in there, but I think it's a perfect segue. What advice would you give to college students for finding the perfect mentor?
Well, to me, this is a tough one, but not one that's impossible. Okay. Because most mentors are not quite going to be at the elevation mine was. But I think the important thing is to hang out where people like that could be a mentor for you hang out. Sure. And whether it's online or whether it's in an association or anything like that, I think the important thing is that you make a personal connection. You meet them face to face, because otherwise it's really hard to make much of a connection.
I think so too.
If you go on to, say, LinkedIn, you find the kind of people that you might want to have as mentors, find out where they are. If they're in New England and we're out here, that's one thing. But find out where they are, who they hang out with, what groups are they in, what organizations are they in.
Sure.
And you can meet them that way. And then you can start making the connection, because there needs to be a connection for somebody to become a mentor, unless you pay them.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, and I'll
Deborah,
step in on that one. And what's interesting is there's trainers, there's coaches, and there's mentors. Mentors is supposed to be somebody that has been there and they want to pass down their legacy to somebody. It's not, paying a fee to go to somebody's training. So I actually almost look at the professors themselves, and at LMU, where a lot of this practice came from, was from because the professor there had been coaching the entrepreneur, teaching the entrepreneur class. So I think that their professors can be their first mentors. There's also on LinkedIn, there's some groups I'll talk about when we get to that section. But I think that really the professors are their first mentors.
I agree. I agree. And I'm going to pipe in on that one too and just throw in my advice, because I am such a fan of Google+. I think that a lot of college students can also connect with many people on Google. Deborah, that's how you and I got connected, through Jack Crawford. And I love it with this generation that you really don't have to be, but I do love that lead of finding out where they hang out. But you can also connect with people on Google+ and get an authentic connection. And then you can do things like this, like Hangouts.
Oh,
and it really is amazing. Yes, go ahead, Lee.
I think one other key thing is, Deborah mentioned professors, but remember that we know a lot of people.
Exactly.
Just in our daily lives. And they could meet people through the professors or through other instructors at college, or through people that they know in their community. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in their industry that may be in the community that would have connections, who would introduce them.
Sure. And I think
all of that.
Sure, I love it. And I think just thinking outside of the box, like you should in general with searching for jobs, same thing like you were saying with the advice of just don't go with what can you do for me, but really that I'm genuinely interested in you. I see something that I could truly take away. I mean, who's not going to be complimented by that type of approach, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That will make a huge difference.
I think so too. All right, Lee, let's talk about you. You, my friend, have authored several. You've authored several books. I'm going to mention a couple. We're going to focus on one. So, Coaching for the New Century, 57 Steps for Better Writing, and let's talk about profitable social media.
Okay. Profitable Social Media was a book I did with a couple of other authors a couple of years ago. And the main reason I wrote it was because I had used social media in promoting a multi-speaker seminar that a partner and I put on. And one of the things we found was that many of the people who were involved with social media were getting stuck on it. They were wasting time, they were doing things that they didn't need to do, and they didn't know how to get out of that. So we wrote the book. The subhead, I think, is something like social media it's getting rid of the play. It's saying, don't play on it so much. Use it for business.
Yes.
And this is because you can make connections. And my whole thing, I had two interesting concepts in the book. One of which I called the uncertainty principle of marketing, which is you don't know who's going to see your message when, so you need to have your message out there when the people who are going to see it come to where the message is. The second one was serendipity selling, which is all about that connection that happens without being planned. But again, if you're not there and you're not out in the world when that happens, you won't be found. So it was about using social media as a means to connect, to find the people in your market, connect with them, see who's talking about what you are talking about, and in that way make connections that mean something. And that was our whole point. Don't just go out there and blast the universe with all sorts of miscellaneous stuff. Talk about what you care about. Talk about it in a way that attracts people to you. And then you can move them eventually into your sales funnel, but don't try to sell them on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And quit with the selfies. That's always my piece of advice.
Exactly.
For the college students,
it's all about them, not about you.
Right. Even the selfie photos and so forth. Well, listen, now I want a copy of your book, just so you know.
Okay.
Well, and I'd like to jump in on one of my favorite
Yes,
books.
please, Deborah, yes.
So one of my favorite books is called Tribes by Seth Godin. And the reason why I like it is because I think what college students have so well done is they've learned how to be social on a internet platform, Facebook. And so a lot of people go, oh, that's just, young people and social and blah, blah, blah. But the whole part of whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Google Plus is just that. It is being social. It's learning how to have a conversation. So you might take the conversation from having fun to, getting a job. Either way, it's learning how to talk to somebody in their language. I mean, we don't go to China and speak speak Spanish or speak Japanese when we go to Russia. I mean, you have to, you have to know what customs are, and that you have to know what cultures are. And I think that Seth Godin does it so beautifully because he basically steps people into, it's about a community and it's a conversation. And I think that, where people think there's a generation gap, they're confused. Because whether it's Lee and I or you or our children, I think when you talk about the common interests that we have together, there's no barriers. And I think for college students, they do that so well that they're going to do exceptionally well on LinkedIn. They may need to know what other industries they might be interested in or what type of positions lead to where or how to, find somebody that's an HR or a recruiter for their industries. But I think the social part for them, they've got a home run.
Oh, what a great point about the language barrier. I love that analogy. That's fantastic. Of going to another country and speaking that. So, and I agree with you. I think that college students really are set up to succeed. They don't have to get rid of some old thought patterns like we do, that we've learned from our generation as well. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you for that. So let's see. Hey, Lee, what is your favorite connection? And I'm thinking just on LinkedIn in general, like kind of what's your favorite connection?
My favorite connection in
LinkedIn. That would be a good place to start, or just in general. I mean, I think this kind of goes in the influencers category as well. But kind of what's your favorite on that?
I have never actually said I had a favorite connection because I have quite a few.
Yeah.
I have
How about we say,
what
are some of your favorites? How's that? That way you don't have to pigeonhole anybody.
Actually, some of the best ones for me are the people that I hang out with around here. As far as people who are famous or things like that, I don't think about that as much. But for instance, my business partner who I did the seminar business with, it's R.V. Robinson, and we're hanging out here at a seminar today. But she'll post stuff for me, and I'll post stuff for her, and
that's fantastic.
So we work back and forth, and each one of us benefits. And we use Facebook and we use LinkedIn. So people who like to connect like that, to me, are the ones who are the best. And I know I've got several relatively well-known people on it, but they're people that I've met through seminars and through speaking and through things of that sort. And I think the best connections you have are your people that you know the best who also have good connections.
Agreed. I love that. How about you, Deborah?
Oh my goodness, I could do this for the rest of the day.
The day is long, right?
Yeah, so like we talk about Deepak Chopra, I mean, I keep saving him for when we get into the conversation about groups. But Brian Tracy is one of my favorite. Les Brown is one of my favorite. And it's because people that, they were my mentors and people that I looked up to. And then there's favorites that I have, like John Chow, who, he's one of the top bloggers in the world. And the reason why he's one of my favorite connections is because he comes to some of my own events, and yet I go to his events. And so it's kind of fun to meet new people through other people. And I think that that's what makes it really, fun and active. But one of my other favorites is one of my top recruiters in Southern California is Karen Rogert. I mean, she's helped some of my dear, dear friends who, that was the whole beginning of LinkedIn for college students, was because I was helping CEOs and CFOs who normally were recruited out of their positions, right? They went from one to the other, and then all of a sudden they found themselves without a job, and 1 year went by, and 2 years went by, and all of a sudden, they spent $100,000, $200,000 on their kids to go to school, and they don't know if their kid's going to get a job. And that's where, it really sparked me that they're the leaders of our world, and that if they don't learn how to build those connections, and I want them to get the right connections now while they're in school, because they're in high demand.
Yes.
All the big companies want them because they have the, many years to come, and they're very innovative and creative. And that's the other thing that's very fascinating. I have a lot of friends that are big engineers and Six Sigma, but what company wants to hire? They want to hire the people that are creative and problem solvers, and you can't teach that. It's
innovators.
Something that is just,
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about them, is they're these innovators.
Yeah, and you're really helping them to leverage this really important time. So that's why, again, this book is so great. So thank you for doing what you do, Debra. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Lee, what kind of jobs? I feel like I'm on a game show. What kind of jobs have you had in the past? Right?
That sounds fun.
What kind of jobs have you had in the past that make you feel that have led you to where you are right now? So tell us a little bit about your background, which we could obviously go look at your LinkedIn, but give us a little bit of a connecting path to how you got to where you are today.
Okay, well, I've probably had about 3 or 4 careers. Okay, I started in the newspaper business as an editor and as a reporter and photographer. So I learned the art of writing and editing right up front doing it. And then after 15 years, I moved into becoming a chief financial officer in the magazine business at Beverly Hills 213 and Newport Beach 714 magazines.
Wow.
Which I did for about 20 years. So I worked out of Beverly Hills and in one of the premier society magazines in the country, probably. Then during that same period, I was doing a lot of public speaking. I started when I was 25 years old. So I've been doing that for over 40 years now. And that has been a way that I made a huge number of connections in the business. So when I hooked up with Saul Stein and started learning fiction and publishing and writing, essentially all of this experience started coming together so that I understood how publishing worked, I understood how books worked, I understood how language worked, and key, because I was writing novels, I understood how emotion works. And when I teach people to write books now, I combine that emotional piece, the story, with the factual piece to make an emotionally powerful nonfiction book that people will actually read. So all of this, and nothing that I did was for naught. Everything contributed to what I know today. So I have done, book publishing. For 6 years I did big multi-speaker seminars. Now I am doing writing workshops that could turn into a huge business, but it's all from what I did, from what I experienced and what I learned along the way.
Right.
And it's an eclectic background, and I think it's very different from what most people have, but how do you go from editor to chief financial officer of a public corporation?
It seems like it served you well, but this is what I like of what you're saying, is that you have taken all these different things and woven them into what you're doing now and taken different pieces of it. Very key. I definitely want to encourage everyone out there. I know growing up for me, until really in the last 10 years, it seemed like you really had to stay on the path and stay on that, and obviously know right away. But I really want to encourage everyone to take advantage of being okay with switching gears or checking something out. I mean, going to CFO and then doing that, and then look how these lead to these different paths that you can go down. So
One thing I'd like to, here's one thing I'd like to say. Two of the books that I did are called Adapt and Adapt or Perish. And they are about careers and how careers and jobs have changed over the years, particularly today. And for college students, one of the key points one of my partner authors made in there is that we are way too quick to pick a career and jump into it without really thinking about what our passions and our concerns and our desires and our visions are. And we end up getting stuck there at the age of 30 or 35.
Paralyzed.
Totally burned out, unhappy with what we're doing, unfulfilled. So that's why I would say to college students coming out, don't just jump into the first thing. Pay attention to what's out there. Look for the things you care about, that you enjoy, that you have fun with. That's what I did. That's what got me in the newspaper business.
That's
Didn't
fantastic.
pay a lot,
yeah.
but it's the basis of everything I'm doing today. So
yeah, you got it, and you have to have that passion going, and with passion comes fun as well, right?
Right, exactly.
It's got to be in there too. Deborah, do you have any? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to play on the game show idea that you said, because my son, I never knew that in his bucket list was Jeopardy. And Lee knows the background of my son, but he actually went to Cal State Fullerton, but he was also in the ROTC at LMU. And so I guess when you go to Jeopardy and you wear your uniform, you have a pretty high chance of getting picked. And he actually got picked and was a game winner. So I love that.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
I want to.
Amazing.
Isn't that absolutely? I never in a million years. A show that's been on for 30 years. You know, certainly through my youth, and now here goes the next generation. But the word I want to use with that is the word called carriage. You know, horse and buggy carriage, yes. But what I mean by that is carriage is something that carries through your life. So all the little bits and pieces where people don't really, get, they thought that, well, that job was a waste, or that certainly didn't benefit me, or that boss was this, or whatever those things were. When you look back, when you get to like where we are, we actually see where every single thing we ever did benefited us.
Yes.
And so, we're talking about the charity and the volunteer, and I'm going to say again, if you were a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, that means that you have honor and trust and integrity, and those things will call to you as you go into positions. And it might mean that you are going to be a CFO or a CEO. And I'm just so honored that being in this position now, that I get to share where all these opportunities they may have had in the past, they're going to see that there's lots of benefits for them in the future, and start putting those pieces, because it's about their character that will get them the job that truly is right, and the culture where they will be happy.
I love that. That is actually a perfect segue. We've got just a couple more questions, and now we're really picking your brain today, and it's fabulous. So, Lee, speaking of, what is your favorite charity or your not-for-profit that you're just crazy about, that you spend a lot of time with, which I think is very important for everyone to pick as well, and have that philanthropic sense? What's your favorite?
Well, here's something that I've done. Instead of just taking one and supporting that just from me, here's an interesting thing that I've done. I've joined an improv group, acting group.
Okay, you stumped me on that one. That's fantastic.
I know, me too.
What they do is put on shows to raise money for charities.
Stop.
And we do 4 or 5 shows a year.
That is brilliant.
We can get 50 and 100 people in a show and raise money for, Save the Bay in Newport Beach here. We can raise money for the Orange County Rescue Mission. We can raise money for half a dozen or a dozen of our favorite charities around here, and be much more effective than just as an individual.
That is the coolest thing I've heard all day. I love it. You got me on that one. I mean, it's so brilliant, because you have this same thing that you can take and just shift it to whatever is going on. It could be animal rescue. It could be right now with something going on in the Philippines, like that kind of thing. That's a fantastic idea. Wow, I'm so gonna steal that. I love it.
I know, and it's using the talents I have.
Yes.
It comes right off of speaking and that sort of thing. and it's fun, and we have a great time, but we raise a lot of money for people.
That is fabulous. Hey, Deborah, try and top that one.
Don't give me that challenge. I'll match it. So for me, one of my favorite connections and one of my favorite philanthropy is Jim Palmer. He created one called OC Rescue, and what he does is he in a community of 200 people that would be homeless on the street. Some of them are mothers that had very big challenges. They were single mothers. Some people have struggled through addictions and found recovery and had to prove their way to get into their community. But when they get into the community, it serves them for 2 years and teaches them all the character and principles and helps them restructure and build their life. And I have watched them literally graduate from there and graduate from college at the same time, and at the same time get a full-time job and provide for their family. It brings a tear to my eye what Jim Palmer has done. He's also been on 52 boards. And so I encourage every single college student, I don't care if it's cleaning the beach or if it's doing something for green or go green, or if it's something for little children, or if it's the Ronald McDonald House. Look at all our lives as a child. When we saw the Ronald McDonald House, it was helping somebody. I have to say another big favorite for me is the Special Olympics.
Yes.
But there's 2 million groups on LinkedIn, and there's so many charities, and they can jump in and get the experience, and that experience will step them way above other people to get a position.
I love it. And those are all great ones. I do encourage it. I know for myself, I use social media to bring awareness for homeless pets and for situations including puppy shelters. I'm really about the education component, so I really try and leverage and empower everyone to speak for those who don't have a voice, as I like to say, and to repost. Yeah, I love that phrase, to repost anything that has to do with, a lost dog. Or dogs that need rescue. I've seen some really powerful things happen just with the share. And you can insert whatever cause you think is important into that, absolutely. So I have one more question, and it's going to be good. You're going to love it. Lee, because I'm going to write down whatever you're going to say, just so you know, because I'm going to love it. What tip would you give a college student for them to prepare to become successful before they graduate college? So while they're in the college process.
Okay. The most important thing that I think a college student can do is learn how to learn. In other words, you're taking your classes, but it's not really about the classes. Some of that you'll use as you get out into the real world. But if you can learn how to find out the things you need to know when you need to know them, and if you can learn how to research things, learn how to find the right people, learn how to do that, this is where success comes from, because success is all about looking at things in a different way. It's about stepping out and finding your path. And your path will include all of the experience you've had in college, because that's where, yes, you learned a few things, but that's where you learned to relate to the people that you were working with. That's where you learned to cooperate in the groups and the sports and all of that. And that's where you learned how to find out what you don't know, because you can't learn it all, and you're not going to learn it all. You'll get out into the real world and discover that not only can't you learn, you don't know anything, but you know how to find out, and you know how to get help. And that, I think, is the key thing that students should remember. Always explore, always look at things differently, always go for the unusual, so that when the time comes, your mindset is that way, and you can do it.
And be comfortable with not knowing. I think that is so important, and that's the message that you're really telling people. Yeah, be okay to explore, be okay with not knowing. And I always remember one of my mentors teaching me that too. I would get so sometimes intimidated by information that somebody else knew, and they would say, Mia, they had to learn it somewhere else too. They don't have the corner on the market on that information. You too can have that. So I love that. That's fantastic. Deborah, what's your parting thoughts on this with this last question?
Actually, for today, I think what it's going to be is I learned a long time ago. There's 3 things that humans have a hard time asking for or saying. 1 is I love you, 2 is I'm sorry, and 3 is can you help me?
Yes.
And
So true.
And so with that being said, I had a friend of mine 35 years ago said, if you knew 100 people that liked you, knew you, and trusted you, you wouldn't need to look for a job or for a friend. So I say, if you will just take that combination of those 2 things and remember that keep those people always in your life and build good relationships and be that integrity. And when you are, it's so simple. They would be sad if you didn't ask them for help, because there's somebody out there that you probably know, and it might be your best friend's father, but he would love to do an introduction for you and bring you into that company and be proud to say that I knew him when he was yay high, and now look at him, or her. So yeah.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think that people do love to help much more than you think, and just like you're saying, someone's father that could just be like, they love the opportunity for them to be able to offer something that they're good at. So please don't miss out on that. So Lee, thank you so much for all the great information you gave us today. I'm just blown away. I'm gonna send you an invite to be my mentor. I'm just saying.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
What's the best way for us to find you? Is it leepound.com? Is that the best way for us to find?
Yes, that's the best way to do it.
Okay.
And the email's lee@leepound.com. Yes.
Excellent.
That's it.
I love it. Talk about branding, folks. That's another thing. Think about a very easy way to brand yourself is make sure it's the across-the-board message. Debra, tell us where we can find the book or where we can find more information about the book. LinkedIn for college students.
It'll be on, everywhere that I am, but, it's Debra Faris. Find me on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn for college students. It will be coming out in January. So with that being said, that's going to be an amazing year. I'm so honored and so excited. But, Mia, I just have to say thank you for being you. You are truly an angel and a blessing for so many, and so gifted to help all these people that you do.
Honey, thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity for me as well when you asked me to come along on this journey with you with this new book. So I got to send a shout out for you. And that's it for tonight. I am Mia Voss with the Mia Connect. You can find me at themiaconnect.com. Lee and Debra, thank you again so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. What maybe I don't want.
Right,
so
right.
I think that is really critical, and that's one of the things we do, in the speaking and book industry. It's not about what can you do for me. It's about what can I do for you. That's how we make the connections and how we get on, stages and get emails and make JVs and things like that. It's the same thing for college students.
It really is, and I'll tell you, that is the best piece of advice, all you college students out there who are watching this. That really is. Again, when we talk about wish something you knew a long time ago, take it from the older folks. That is something that's really going to serve you well in the future. Debra, what's your take on that as well for connecting with folks?
So on the influencers, what's fascinating for me, that it's all someone's perception. So for example, if you have an entrepreneur spirit, then an influencer that you might want to watch and listen to what he has to share is Richard Branson. I mean, not to say who doesn't love Richard Branson, but he truly is, not just a renegade, but somebody who's brilliant and innovative, and he's created so many wonderful things for people on this planet. And I think that that's what our next generation is going to be doing, is they are innovators and they are creative. I think a fun one I love that's an influencer on LinkedIn is, believe it or not, Conan O'Brien. So
I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, and I put him in my book on commencements because he actually is brilliant and intelligent, and I just love to share with college. You get to meet people, whether it's online or offline. You get to see people's profile, what actually led them to those positions. So, one of my favorite is that, all the CFOs I've ever met, they actually were accountants at one time, and then they turned into controllers. So it's a position versus an industry. I just think that LinkedIn is a great wealth of information for them to start learning.
I agree with you on that. I think it's something, too, that I always coach with my clients. LinkedIn is the best place where you can shout out and say, this is exactly what I do, and this is what I'm really good at. And that's the great thing about LinkedIn. What a great resource. You can see from soup to nuts, beginning to end, where someone started and where they are now, right?
Absolutely.
I love it. All right. So with that, on LinkedIn, for both Lee and Debra, where do you suggest? I mean, I know for myself, I love following influencers and the different sections. Can you both give us kind of what you do when you're searching around on LinkedIn, how you find the people that you love to share and really connect with?
Well, one thing that I like to do is look at, particularly the second and third connections that I have, because a lot
Yes.
of those are in my industry. And because I've connected with a lot of people as first connections, I have all kinds of people who show up that I should be connected with. And I think for college students, again, if you can get connected to a few leaders in the industry that you could make friends with or communicate with before you even go out. The key things that I've done through my whole career is essentially, although I've worked for companies, they've been small companies and entrepreneurial companies all the way through. And I think one of the key things for me was the connections that I had made, say, in my early years in college and so forth, that helped me go from company to company, and it really made a huge difference. So for me, college students coming out of college need to have connections more than ever these days. They need to already be hooked into the business and the companies and the types of operations that they want to ultimately work for. So when I look at LinkedIn, I see a huge opportunity for college students to connect with the people that they actually want to be interviewing with in the very, very near future. So it's a huge thing. I wish I had had it 40 years ago when I was doing this.
I was just thinking the same thing. Me too.
Yeah.
I think I love the adage, it's never too young to start, absolutely, with college students, and I would say even high school students, to be honest with you. Debra,
Yes.
what's your take on that as well?
Well, I think a lot of times when kids are in college, they don't really always know what their end in mind is or what their purpose is. They just know that they're trying to get a good education. They might know an industry. So I think LinkedIn gives them a whole lot of different avenues to look at, to consider. And by getting
Put an application in. Just because, say, you're interested in their company or something like that, you can find their connections, which are a lot of the people in the same industry that you may be interested in going into. So I really think that you can leverage all of those second and third connections to find the people that you're interested in and connect with them. And do it on a social basis, not on a I'm looking for a job basis, or I'm a college student who may want to connect with you because I want something from you.
That's a great point, Lee. I was going to ask you that. What's the approach? Because a lot of these people who are influencers, I'm sure, are hit all the time with suggestions. Is that sounds like a great approach, more of a personal thing. I'm interested in you, right?
Exactly. I think the approach is I'm interested in what you're doing. I'm interested in learning more about how you do what you do, not more about your company necessarily. But
right. What can you give me? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
neat.
And here's the other key. What can I do for you?
Yep. Love it.
What do I have that might help somebody in your company? And they will have looked at the company and researched it a bit to see what maybe is needed. And there's always a way we can help somebody, even if it's really small, by sending a customer or by just doing something that's public that they can see, that person can see. And they'll be more likely to connect because, hey, this is a person who isn't out to hammer me for what I want.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mia Voss with the Mia Connect, host of the Social Media Power Chat and 15 Minutes with Christine and Mia, right here on YouTube. I'm so excited to talk with Debra Faris today. She's an intuitive LinkedIn coach and an amazing people connector, and she's on a wonderful mission with her new book called LinkedIn for College Students. And what she's doing is bringing to Google Hangouts people that she's connected with on LinkedIn that are very successful and will tell us their stories. So with that, I want to introduce Lee Pound. I have to read his description. It's so fabulous. Author, speaker, blogger, writing coach, book editor, and publisher. Lee, it's so great to talk with both you and Debra today.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. All right, Deborah, why is Lee one of your favorite connections on LinkedIn for this book, LinkedIn for College Students?
Well, in Southern California, Lee actually is known as the coach's coach. He's actually not only written a lot of books, but he helps speakers write their books. And so I am really honored. He's just got this kind demeanor, and when you know him, you know that he comes from a place of empowerment to help other people.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. Just even in the green room, getting ready for the show and then reading his information, I can really pick up on that. So, Lee, we're getting ready for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, this is good. What gives you the entrepreneur talent, and how do you think college students can emulate and use that for their success?
Well, I think one of